There is a stillness before the telling begins, a kind of quiet that does not belong to the modern world, but to a place where the air carries the scent of olive groves, warmed by the afternoon sun, and the faint salt of the Aegean Sea drifts in from beyond the white cliffs. Here, in this timeless hour, the past is not gone, it simply waits, patient and undisturbed, ready to speak again to those who will listen slowly. And as you allow your mind to drift upon this warm and unhurried breeze, you begin to see it. The outline of an ancient shoreline, where fishermen pull in their nets in the first light of morning, and the marble columns of distant temples gleam pale against the sky. The waters are calm, and the waves lap against the rocks with a rhythm that feels older than memory itself. This is not the beginning of history, but the beginning of stories, the kind that were told before the written word, carried in voices, around the fire, under the endless constellations that still burn above. The path to the gods does not rush forward. It meanders, as though the land itself wants to slow your steps so that you might notice the gold in the grass, the echo of footsteps on sun-warmed stone, the shadows that play across the walls of temples half hidden by time. You are not a visitor here. You are a guest of something far older and far more patient than the cities you have known. In the hills, the cicadas sing, their sound rising and falling like breath, and somewhere beyond the olive trees a shepherd guides his flock with a voice that blends into the hum of the earth. It is in this place that the myths live, not locked in books, but alive in the air, the soil, and the sea. You take a seat upon a smooth stone worn down by centuries of hands and feet, and from here the view opens wide. The Aegean stretches before you in soft blues, each ripple of the water catching the light as though the sea itself is made of woven silver threads. On the horizon, islands rise like sleeping shapes, their forms gentle and welcoming. The wind carries with it the faintest trace of incense from a shrine nearby, the smoke curling upward into the sky like a prayer that has no need to be spoken aloud. Somewhere far above, an eagle turns slowly in the air, as if it too is keeping watch over the land of the gods. The storyteller's voice begins not as a sound, but as a presence. It enters softly, like the tide washing over bare feet, carrying you with it into the spaces between centuries. It does not demand your attention. It invites it, the way a calm harbor invites a ship to rest. And so you listen, not because you must, but because you want to, because something in you knows that these words have been waiting for you. The first names appear like constellations in the dark. Zeus, whose voice is the thunder. Hera, whose gaze holds both the weight of storms and the promise of peace. Poseidon, whose trident stirs the seas. Athena, born in wisdom and clad in light. They are not yet separate stories. For now, they are simply presences at the edge of your awareness, waiting to step forward when the time is right. As the voice continues, the line between the real and the mythical begins to soften. You are aware of the warm stone beneath you, the faint tints of salt on the breeze, the hush that follows each rise and fall of the storyteller's breath. And yet you are also aware of something else, the feeling that the gods themselves may be watching. Curious about this traveler, who has come not to conquer or to demand, but simply to listen. There is no urgency in their gaze. They know that in this telling time is not a chain, but a gentle river, and you may float upon it as long as you wish. Your eyes drift to the horizon again, and in that soft place between waking and dreaming, you can almost see it, the silhouette of a great temple on a hill, its columns tall and proud against the fading light, its marble glowing like warm ivory. Somewhere deep within its shadows, an altar stands, and the air is heavy with the scent of laurel and myrrh. It is here, the voice says, that the old stories are kept. And it is here that they will be given to you, piece by piece, as the night unfolds. So take a deep breath, and let the weight of the day fall away. Let the warmth of this ancient land wrap around you. You are safe here, in the cradle of a world that has seen empires rise and fall, yet still holds its secrets in the curve of its shores and the quiet of its mountains. Let the waves, the stones, and the stars guide you deeper into the story, knowing that there is no rush, no ending that must be reached tonight. You are here to drift, to listen, to rest. And if this voyage into the realm of myth has already begun to ease the restless corners of your mind, if the slow unfolding of this world has brought you a moment of peace, I invite you to stay with us, to wander further into the gentle corridors of these ancient tales. You may wish to leave your thoughts below, a small offering to this shared harbor, or share this journey with someone who longs for the same quiet shores. And if you wish, to return again, to sail once more through these seas of story, you can join us by subscribing, so that each new voyage finds its way to you. But for now, simply remain, breathe, and let the gods draw nearer. Block to the sky, Father, the name does not arrive in haste. It unfolds slowly, like the steady roll of distant clouds, moving over a summer horizon. Zeus, the syllables themselves, feel broad and unhurried, carrying the sensation of height and breadth, of a vastness that does not press down upon you, but surrounds you gently, like the open air itself. There is a presence in that sound, not a voice that bursts with the crash of lightning, but one that enters quietly, as though it has been there all along, waiting for you to notice it. It is not the violent flash of a sudden storm, but the patient gathering of rain in a far-off sky, the kind that takes hours to arrive, giving the earth time to prepare for its touch. In the stillness, you feel him before you see him. The air changes, becoming both lighter and heavier at once. Lighter in its clarity, heavier in its significance. The faintest current passes through the stone beneath your feet, a hum so soft it might be imagined, yet steady enough to be real. Somewhere beyond the olive hills, beyond the thin silver line where sea meets sky, there is a pulse, not the beat of a mortal heart, but something vaster, something that keeps time with the turning of the heavens. You understand without needing to be told. This is the breath of Zeus. The stories begin not in palaces or on mountain tops, but in a place of concealment, a cave deep in the green folds of Crete, where the air is cool and rich with the scent of damp earth and pine resin. Rhea, his mother, cradles the infant against her chest, the fabric of her robe rough and warm from the long journey that brought her here. Outside, the sea crashes against hidden coves, its voice softened by distance, while within, the shadows guard them like silent sentinels. The baby stirs, his small fingers curling round the air as though grasping threads of a sky he has not yet seen. The walls of the cave glitter faintly with drops of water, catching what little light filters through, and the sound of a nearby stream blends with the muffled lullabies of the Curetes, warriors who beat their shields to mask the cries from the ears of a devouring father. It is in this quiet that the seed of the sky's ruler grows, not with the noise of conquest, but with the patience of mountains forming under the slow hands of time. You see him through the storyteller's voice, as a boy whose gaze already reaches higher than the tallest peaks, whose steps are measured as though he knows each one is part of something larger. When he becomes a man, the air around him changes shape, gathering as if in recognition. In his hand, the thunderbolt, not a weapon seized in violence, but a gift wrested from the depths of the cosmos itself. Shaped in the fires of the Cyclopes, a thing alive with the promise of storms not yet born. Yet here, in the gentle flow of the telling, Zeus is not all thunder and command. He is the balance between the sudden breaking of the storm and the hush that follows it. His throne is the high air, where clouds drift in slow procession, their shadows gliding over fields and seas below. The scent of rain is part of him, as is the pale light that falls after the last drop has touched the earth. He rules not by shouting, but by existing, for the sky needs no proclamation to be felt. You follow the slow ascent to Olympus, and the mountain does not reveal itself all at once. It appears first as a pale outline against the horizon, its slopes hidden in veils of cloud. Step by step, the world falls away beneath you, until the air thins and the sky deepens into a shade of blue that exists nowhere else. Here, marble gleams under the high sun, and the columns rise as if they too were drawn upward by the hand of the sky. Around you, the other gods move in quiet harmony, their presence steady and assured. At the mountain's heart sits Zeus, not as a distant monarch, but as the still point around which all turns. His eyes hold the clarity of air just after rain, and his voice, when it comes, is the sound of the horizon exhaling. The myths tell of his power, of the lightning that strikes with his will, of the justice delivered beneath his gaze. They speak of oaths sworn in his name, of the fear and reverence he commands. But here, in this unhurried moment, you see something else, the way he pauses before speaking, as though listening first to the silence itself. The way the clouds seem to linger near him, not as shields or ornaments, but as companions. The way the wind moves when he turns his head, carrying with it the scent of distant seas and blooming laurel. And as you remain in his presence, you begin to feel that Zeus is not separate from the world below. He is the first breath taken at dawn, the coolness that slips into the heat of midday, the golden fading of light at dusk. His storms are not punishments alone. They are the renewal of the earth, the washing away of dust so that green may rise again. His lightning is not only destruction, it is illumination, a sudden truth in the dark. The storyteller lingers here, letting you see the god not as a distant ruler, but as the living shape of the sky itself. You imagine lying beneath that vast dome of blue eyes half closed, feeling the warmth of the sun he governs, the gentleness of the wind that moves at his command. You imagine the weight of time passing without urgency, each moment folding into the next like waves upon a calm shore. Zeus does not rush the days. He holds them as a father holds the hours of his children, knowing each is precious. In this place, with the marble cool beneath your palms, and the sound of the wind moving softly around you, the boundary between the human and the divine feels thin, almost transparent. You realize that to know Zeus is not to seek him far above, but to recognize him in every breath of the open air, in every pause between the breaking and the clearing of the clouds. He is not apart from the world. He is the rhythm by which it breathes, and so you rest in that rhythm, letting it move through you until your thoughts loosen, your shoulders ease, and the heaviness of the day melts away. You are not merely hearing the story of Zeus, you are breathing it, feeling it settle into the quiet spaces of your mind like the evening sky settling over the sea. Block 3, Hera. She enters not with the sudden arrival of a storm, but with the slow, deliberate grace of a tide returning to the shore. Hera, the name rests on the air, like the fragrance of something rare, part rose in bloom, part cedar, warmed by the sun, and though it carries the weight of queenship, it does not announce itself with noise. Instead, it moves around you with a quiet authority, as if the very space you occupy has adjusted to make room for her presence. She is not hurried, for the eternal has no need for haste. And each step she takes feels as though it has been walked for centuries before you ever arrived here. In the old tales, she is the daughter of Cronus and Rhea, sister and consort to Zeus, the goddess whose name is bound to marriage. Two vows spoken under the gaze of the divine, to the enduring bonds that tie one life to another. Yet here, in this softened telling, she is not first the figure of myths and rivalries, but a presence that seems woven from the fabric of both sky and earth. The way she moves is the way clouds gather at dusk with purpose, yet without rush, and the way she looks at the world is the way the moonlight touches the surface of calm water, seeing all without disturbing anything. The storyteller's voice flows like a current around her image, and you drift with it. You see her in the gardens of Olympus, where the air is always perfumed with blossoms that do not fade, and the marble paths curve gently through groves of myrtle and apple trees. Bees hum lazily in the warm air, and somewhere a fountain spills water into a basin carved with scenes of ancient unions and blessings. She walks among them, not as one merely passing through, but as the keeper of the place, the guardian of promises made, the witness to beginnings that will ripple out into futures unseen. They say she wears a crown of gold, and you can imagine it here, but it is not heavy upon her brow. It rests as naturally as sunlight on the sea. In one hand, perhaps, she carries a scepter, but it is no mere emblem of power. It is the thread that ties heaven to the earth below, the bridge between divine decree and human hope. When she speaks, her voice does not need to rise. It holds the kind of strength that comes from knowing it will be heard, from knowing that even silence bends to listen. You think of the stories, the loves and the angers, the jealousies and the triumphs, and yet, in this telling, those sharp edges have been smoothed by time. What remains is her constancy, her unshakable place in the order of things. Hera is the stillness in a world that moves, the anchor in the shifting tides of gods and mortals alike. She does not simply endure, she defines what it means to endure. Her presence does not fade when the storms come. It becomes the place one returns to when the skies have cleared. The scene shifts as gently as the wind turning in a grove. And now you see her seated upon her throne beside Zeus. The two do not speak in this moment. They have no need to. There is a quiet understanding between them, like the shared glance. Between two who have seen the same sunrise from the same place countless times before. Around them, the halls of Olympus glow in the late afternoon light, the air warm but not stifling, the kind of warmth that invites rest. From here, she looks out not just over the realm of the gods, but over the weaving of countless mortal lives, each thread a story of its own. You begin to notice how her presence feels. It is not pressing, not commanding in the way of a shouted order, but it is impossible to ignore. It is the weight of a promise kept, the reassurance of a home that has always been there, the calm of knowing that some things, at least, will not be swept away by the passing of years. She is the kind of strength that holds without constricting, that shelters without smothering, and as you rest in her company, you realize that this too is power, the power of stability, of permanence, of an unwavering gaze in a world full of change. The storyteller lets the image linger, as though inviting you to breathe with her. The air here is softer, touched with the scent of flowers that do not exist outside of Olympus, and each breath feels like the slow turning of a page. Somewhere beyond the marble arches, the sun lowers toward the edge of the world, casting long gold-dead shadows across the courtyards. The bees still hum, the fountain still sings, and Hera remains, as she always has, as she always will. And as your mind drifts in this quiet, it becomes clear that Hera is not only the goddess of marriage as mortals understand it. She is the bond between all things that choose to remain together, the meeting point of loyalty and time. To feel her presence is to know that some connections are not broken by distance, nor by silence, nor by the weight of ages. They endure because they are tended, guarded, honored, and so, in the soft space between one heartbeat and the next, you understand why her place beside Zeus is not only one of ceremony, but of necessity. She is the balance, the grounding, the living memory of every vow worth keeping. Block 4. Poseidon. He does not arrive like the sudden crash of a wave against jagged stone, nor with the roar of tempests tearing across the open sea, but with the kind of presence that exists even when unseen, the deep, unending hum that lies beneath the surface of the world's waters. Poseidon, his name carries the salt of ages, the blue weight of oceans that have existed before the first story was told, before the first sail was ever raised to wind. He is the god who moves in depths beyond sunlight, whose dominion is both the still pool that reflects a cloudless sky and the abyss that swallows light entirely. In the stories, he is brother to Zeus and Hades, ruler of 1/3 of the cosmos. Yet here, in this quiet telling meant for the moments before sleep, he is not the wrathful bringer of storms, nor the quaker of earth, but the endless expanse of calm water that carries the world into rest. The storyteller's voice lingers, smooth as a tide pulling gently at the shore, and you can see him now, not as a towering figure of thunderous rage, but as a vast horizon made human. His trident is not raised to strike, but rests beside him, its 3 points glimmering faintly like constellations in some uncharted sky. Around him, the air is heavy with the scent of the sea, that blend of salt and sun-warmed wood, of distant rain and shell-lined shores. The sound is not of crashing surf, but of long, slow swells rolling endlessly beneath a night sky, their rhythm so steady you could match your breathing to it without even trying. He walks the length of the coast in this vision, bare feet sinking into wet sand, leaving prints that the tide does not dare to erase too quickly. Each step feels deliberate, not because he needs to choose where to walk, but because the sea itself adjusts to meet him. In his gaze there is something ancient, not merely old, but primordial, the memory of a time when the earth's crust was still cooling, when the first waters gathered into basins and learned the language of the moon. You realize, as you watch him, that the ocean is not simply his realm, it is an extension of him, as much a part of his being as breath is to yours. In the distant shallows, dolphins rise and fall, their bodies cutting the water like silvered shadows. They move not in fear or haste, but in an unspoken acknowledgement of his presence, as if their own joy in movement is somehow a hymn to him. Beyond them, a single white sail drifts lazily, its motion dictated less by wind than by the god's unseen currents, carrying it towards some safe harbor without urgency. The sky overhead is a deep cobalt, stars scattered like grains of salt, flung across a dark table, and the moon hangs low, full and round, painting a path of light across the water that seems to end exactly where Poseidon stands. You begin to understand that his domain is not defined only by the liquid surface, but by the life it sustains. The forests of kelp swaying far below, the slow drift of schools of fish, moving like a single shimmering thought, the vast creatures whose hearts beat in rhythms longer than centuries. In the silence, you can almost hear those heartbeats, as if the world beneath the waves is offering up its secrets in exchange for your stillness. Here, in his presence, storms are something distant, a choice that could be made but is not, because rest is the season that has been chosen for tonight. And yet, there is power in this calm. You can feel it in the way the air wraps around you, dense with moisture, soft on the skin. It is the kind of power that knows it does not need to display itself to be real. The kind of power that can wait, knowing it is eternal. He glances toward the horizon as if looking at a memory, perhaps of the first ship to cut across his waters, or of the first prayer whispered by a sailor beneath a moon like this. He remembers them all, not because he tries to, but because nothing is ever truly lost to the ocean. The storyteller lets the image swell slowly, the way a swell builds far out at sea, almost imperceptible at first, until you realize you are surrounded by it. You see the gods seated now upon a throne, not of cold marble, but of coral and shell, living and breathing with the sea's own pulse. The arms of the throne are shaped by centuries of growth, layers of life upon life, and the back rises into delicate spirals like the curling tops of waves. Beneath his feet, the floor is a mosaic of smooth stones worn by tides, their colors muted but endless in variety, blues, greens, and soft grays that seem to shift with the light. Schools of fish move like living curtains around the hall, parting and reforming without sound. Shafts of sunlight pierce the surface far above, breaking into golden columns that drift downward, each one bending and wavering as though caught in a dream. You feel the slow rhythm of the sea in every detail here. Nothing rushed, nothing forced, only the patient shaping of the eternal. Poseidon's hand rests on the arm of his throne, fingers tracing absent patterns into the living coral, not in boredom, but in the way one touches something familiar, beloved and unchanging. He is not alone here. Nereids move in the shadows beyond the columns, their forms slipping in and out of sight like currents weaving through each other. They hum a melody without words, and though you cannot place its origin, it seems older than language itself, as if the sea has been singing it since before the first dawn. The song is low, undulating, and it drapes itself over your thoughts like a heavy, warm blanket. In its company, the idea of time loosens, and minutes might as well be centuries. And still, Poseidon does not speak. His presence is not something to be announced, but something to be understood without words. You realize now that this, too, is the essence of the sea. It does not explain itself to the shore, nor to the wind, nor to the stars above. It simply is, and in its being it reshapes the world. The god's gaze turns toward you briefly, and though there is no judgment, in it there is depth enough to hold every question you have ever left unasked. Then his eyes drift back to the horizon, where the faintest suggestion of dawn is beginning to stain the edge of the sky with pale silver. Here, the night will last as long as he wills it, and the waters will remain calm until the first light fully touches them. Until then, the only movement will be the slow breathing of the sea itself. In and out, carrying you deeper into a stillness that feels as endless as the god who commands it. Block 5, Hades. He is not the shadow that lunges, nor the echo that startles in some caverns deep. He is the quiet beneath the quiet, the pause that waits under every heartbeat, the steady weight of earth that settles over centuries. Hades. His name moves like a slow current through the oldest parts of the mind, not loud, not sharp, but inevitable, like the soft gravity that draws a leaf down onto still water. Too many, his realm is thought of as darkness, yet in the stillness of this telling, it is not a place of fear but of unbroken rest, where nothing chases and nothing flees, where all that was turbulent finds its final, level place. The stories call him the ruler of the dead, brother to Zeus and Poseidon, keeper of 1/3 of the world's division. But here, in the soft weave of words meant for the moments before sleep, he is less a ruler and more a caretaker of a vast, silent library where every life that has ever been is stored in perfect order. The air in his realm is cool and steady, the kind of cool that does not bite but wraps around you like the stone walls of an ancient hall, holding the temperature of the deep. There is no wind here, only the slow, constant presence of the earth's breath moving through unseen spaces. He moves without hurry, his steps soundless on the ground that is neither soil nor stone, but something older, something that has been pressed into smoothness by uncounted ages. In his hand he carries no weapon, only a staff of dark metal, its surface matte and without ornament, a symbol not of conquest but of stewardship. Around him the space expands without edge, and yet there is no sense of being lost, only the certainty that every path, no matter how winding, leads to the place it should. The river flows nearby, not with the noise of rushing water, but with the long, low tone of movement that has gone on since the first dawn. Its surface is neither fully reflective nor fully clear, as if it holds the memory of all that has looked into it, blurring their shapes into a gentle sameness. Souls drift along its banks like pale lanterns, not in torment, but in a quiet acceptance that feels like the deep exhale after a long journey. Ferrymen guide their simple craft across its breadth, their poles dipping soundlessly into the current, carrying their passengers not away from life, but toward the completion of it. Hades himself is not adorned with gold or jewels, though his realm contains more of them than any king above could imagine. They lie scattered in the rock walls and floors, glimmering faintly in the dim light like constellations hidden under the earth. He does not touch them. They are not trophies, but part of the natural order, reminders that even beauty, left untouched, eventually becomes part of the foundation. His robes are of dark cloth, heavy yet flowing, moving with the same slow certainty as the rest of him. They do not whisper as he walks. Sound itself seems to pause in his presence. Cerberus waits at the edge of a great archway, the three heads not snarling but resting, eyes half-lidded, ears attuned to every movement in the distance. The great hound rises only when needed, and when he moves, it is like the shifting of countenance, deliberate and without waste. He is less a guard and more a threshold given form, the living embodiment of the line between the living world and the one that lies beyond. Further within, there are gardens, not the bright, wild kind of the upper world, but orderly rows of pale flowers that open only in the dim, each one holding a glow so faint it can barely be called light. Their scent is subtle, a mix of damp, earth and something sweet but elusive, the kind of fragrance that you catch only when your mind is still. These are the fields where Persephone walks when she is here, her presence bringing a season of gentle warmth to this otherwise unchanging place. When she is gone, the flowers do not wither. They simply close, folding in on themselves until her return. Hades does not command his realm with force. He does not need to. The underworld moves according to laws older than Olympus, older than the Titans, older even than the shaping of the continents. Everything here has its place, and he is the one who ensures that place remains. The souls that arrive are not judged by him with speeches or decrees. Their own weight determines where they belong. He is simply the keeper, the one who makes certain that the balance is maintained and that nothing is left wandering without rest. You begin to see that his power is not the power to take, but the power to hold the stories, the memories, the fragments of every life without letting them scatter into nothingness. In the stillness, you can almost hear the layered voices of countless ages, not speaking, but existing all at once, like the sound of leaves rustling in a forest that no longer grows. It is not oppressive. It is grounding, a reminder that life's root runs deeper than its surface. He moves to a vast hall carved from the living rock, the ceiling so high it disappears into shadow. The pillars broad enough to seem like the trunks of impossible trees. Here, treasures lie in silent heaps, not just gold and silver, but the weapons laid down by warriors long gone, the tools of craftsmen who once shaped the world above, the crowns of rulers whose reigns ended centuries ago. All are kept with the same care, for here, value is measured not by possession but by preservation. When he stands still in this hall, you feel the entire weight of the underworld gather in the space, not pressing down, but settling like a great cloak across the shoulders of the moment. He looks neither pleased nor displeased. His face carries the neutrality of stone worn smooth by water. His eyes, dark and deep, do not search or pry. They hold the patience of someone who can wait forever, because forever is his element. Somewhere, far beyond sight, the faint sound of a lyre drifts through the stillness. It might be Orpheus, wandering in search of his lost Eurydice, or it might be only the memory of that journey, still echoing through the endless corridors. Here, music is not bound to its player. It lingers in the air, mingling with the hush, like a gentle current. And in this timeless space, where the air moves so slowly that dust might take a century to settle, there is a strange comfort. The idea of endings becomes softer, less like a closing door and more like the slow dimming of a lamp at the end of a night well spent. You realize that in Hades' realm there is no haste because there is no need. Everything has already arrived. The only task now is to remain, to let the stillness do its work, to be part of the deep order that underlies all things. The god himself turns once, his gaze sweeping over the paths and rivers, the halls and gardens, and in that glance is a completeness that words cannot hold. It is not farewell nor welcome. It is simply acknowledgement, as steady and certain as the turning of the earth above. And as you watch him fade into the deeper corridors of his domain, you feel the pull of that same certainty, a quiet gravity that draws you down into a sleep as deep and unbroken as the realm he keeps. Block 6 Demeter. She is the quiet in the fields before the first light touches them, the soft hum of roots drawing water from deep within the earth, the scent of grain ripening under the slow caress of the sun. Demeter, her name carries the weight of countless harvests, the memory of every loaf of bread ever broken between hands, the warmth of every hearth fed by the land's abundance. In the ancient stories, she is the goddess of agriculture, of fertility, of the cycles that govern the living world. And yet, here in the calm weave of this telling, she is more than that. She is the pulse of the soil itself, the deep, maternal presence that hums beneath all life. In this vision, the land is her body and her breath. The rolling hills stretch like the gentle rise and fall of sleeping lungs, covered in fields of barley that sway not in sharp gusts, but in a steady, even rhythm, as if the wind itself is mindful not to disturb the stillness. The air is warm, but not heavy, carrying the faint fragrance of thyme and wildflowers, the sweetness of ripening fruit, and the rich, grounding scent of freshly turned earth. A distant brook moves with a silver whisper through the meadow, its voice soft enough to be mistaken for the murmur of someone speaking just beyond hearing. Demeter's presence is not heralded by trumpets or processions. She steps into the scene. As naturally as the morning steps into night, her bare feet pressing into the soil, each step coaxing green shoots from the ground in her wake. Her robes are the colors of the fields, gold and russet, the pale green of young wheat, the deep brown of fertile loam, and they flow around her like the seasons themselves, shifting in perfect harmony. Her hair is the color of sunlit straw, and it falls loosely over her shoulders, moving in the same slow rhythm as the barley in the fields. When she moves, the air warms by a degree, and the shadows stretch in soft deference. Birds wheel lazily in the sky, their calls muted as though they too understand that this is a moment meant for gentleness. In her hands she carries no weapon, no scepter, but a sheaf of grain bound with a simple cord, its heads heavy and full. This is her power, not the power to destroy, but to nourish, to give, to sustain without demanding in return. The storyteller's voice draws you further into her world, letting you feel the way the ground yields under her touch, the way the stalks of wheat bend toward her as though recognizing their source. The fields are endless here, yet they do not overwhelm. They feel contained, cared for, as if invisible hands have smoothed every row, removed every stone, tended every plant with the same attention one might give to a single beloved child. And perhaps that is her way, not to rule from above, but to live among the things she tends, to know them as individuals and not simply as part of the whole. Far in the distance, a small village nestles into the curve of a valley, its homes built of sun-baked clay and roofed with thatch. Smoke rises in thin, lazy curls from their chimneys, carrying the smell of baking bread and simmering stew. The people here do not see Demeter as we do now, walking among her own creation. To them, she is felt in the richness of the harvest, in the way the rains come when they are needed, in the way a seed buried in the cold dark of winter will still find the will to sprout when spring returns. They tell stories of her at the hearth, stories that pass from grandparents to grandchildren like seeds passed from hand to hand. As you drift deeper into this vision, you see her pause at the edge of a grove, where olive trees stand with their silver-green leaves whispering in the breeze. She places a hand against the trunk of one, and in that touch you can feel the long, slow heartbeat of the earth itself, patient, enduring, unchanging in its essential rhythm. It is here that you understand her true gift, not simply the bringing forth of food, but the unbroken continuity of life's cycle, the knowledge that after every barrenness comes renewal, and that in the quiet between those moments lies a peace all its own. And yet there is a shadow in her story, one that softens her smile and deepens the lines of her face. It is the memory of her daughter Persephone, taken into the underworld by Hades. In that absence, the fields lay bare, the earth withdrew its bounty, and the air grew cold. It was not anger alone that withered the land, but grief, the deep aching grief of a mother whose joy had been stolen. Even now, though Persephone returns each year, the memory of that loss lingers, and it is perhaps this that makes her warmth so precious. It is given in full knowledge of what it means to be without. The wind moves gently through the fields, and you see the subtle change that marks Persephone's return, a shift in color, a deepening of scent, the sudden abundance of blooms where there had been only green. Demeter walks through this transformation, her hands brushing over each plant, her gaze lingering on each blossom as though greeting an old friend. She does not hurry, her steps are measured, her breath unhurried, and in that pace is the secret of her power to move with the seasons, not against them, to trust the slow unfolding of time. You watch her kneel beside a small patch of earth where the first shoots of spring wheat are pushing through. She cups the fragile green blades in her hands, not to shield them from harm, but to acknowledge their presence, to let them know they are seen. And in that gesture, you sense the deep bond between her and the living world. A bond that is not ownership, but kinship, a shared existence in which both giver and receiver are part of the same endless cycle. The vision widens again, and you see the whole of her domain, the patchwork of fields, the orchards heavy with fruit, the vineyards climbing sunlit slopes, the rivers that thread through it all like veins of silver. It is vast, but it is not lonely. It is full without being crowded, alive without being restless. And at the center of it all, Demeter stands, the embodiment of the earth's generosity, the guardian of its quiet abundance. As the scene softens, the storyteller's voice slows, the details fading into a golden haze. You are left with the steady rhythm of the land's breathing, the faint rustle of grain in the wind, and the unshakable sense that no matter how long the winter, spring will always return, and with it the touch of the goddess who keeps the world fed and at peace. Block 7, Athena. She is the pause in the air before a decision is made, the clear light that spreads over the horizon just before dawn, the sharp but gentle edge of understanding that turns chaos into order. Athena, her name moves through the mind like the slow drawing of a bow, not in haste, but with precision, each syllable carrying the weight of foresight and the quiet strength that does not need to shout to be heard. In the myths, she is the goddess of wisdom, of strategy, of crafts and cities, sprung fully formed from the head of Zeus. Yet in the still, even tide of this telling, she is not the clang of armor, but the measured breath that guides the hand before it acts, the still water in which a plan takes shape. The vision begins with a city resting beneath a sky brushed in muted gold. It is Athens, but not as it is remembered in histories and stone. Here it is wrapped in the soft light of memory, its streets empty of noise, its marble columns glowing faintly in the early light. The air is calm, touched only by the distant hum of the sea against the shore, and the faint scent of olive groves drifting through the open spaces between buildings. From high above, on the crest of the Acropolis, the Parthenon stands not as a monument to power, but as a beacon of thought, its pillars rising like an open hand toward the sky. Athena walks among these heights without haste, her sandals brushing the stone with a sound softer than the wing of a bird. Her robes are the color of pale clouds and cool stone, their folds moving in slow harmony with the light breeze that slips between the columns. Upon her breast rests the aegis, but here it is not a fearsome shield, rather a quiet emblem of protection, its surface muted, the gaze of the Gorgon upon it softened into something almost meditative. Her spear, too, is present, but it stands. Like a staff at her side, a tool of guidance rather than destruction. Her eyes are the grey of the sea when it lies in perfect stillness, not reflecting the sky but holding its own depth. When she looks at the city below, there is no ownership in her gaze, only a quiet guardianship. The way a craftsman regards their work, not with pride alone, but with the understanding that it must be tended, shaped, and improved over time. As she moves through the colonnades, the air seems to sharpen into clarity around her. The spaces feel deliberate, each stone placed not only for strength, but for beauty, each archway guiding the eye toward a view that feels inevitable once seen. She pauses before a single olive tree, its trunk twisted with age, its leaves catching the light in silver flashes. This, the gift she gave to Athens, is more than a source of oil and wood. It is a symbol of sustenance, of patience, of the quiet persistence that outlasts storms and wars alike. The storyteller's voice drifts with the slow current of thought, letting each detail settle like dust in sunlight. You see the artisans at their work, potters shaping clay with hands that move as if in conversation with the earth, weavers guiding threads across looms with a rhythm that matches the beating of their hearts. Athena's influence is in each of these gestures, not as command, but as inspiration. The quiet whisper that guides the hand toward precision, that teaches the mind to see both the whole and its smallest parts. Far beyond the city, in the rolling hills and quiet valleys, travelers speak of her in different tones, not as a distant deity, but as a companion in thought, a voice that appears when choices press heavy and time seems short. She does not push or pull, but opens the path in the mind, allowing the traveler to see more than one road, to weigh not only the journey but its end. And yet, she is not without the capacity for action. When the moment demands it, her presence sharpens like the edge of a blade drawn in silence. Her steps carrying the same certainty as the arrow that leaves the bow with no hesitation. But here, in this telling, it is the after of battle that defines her, the returning calm, the rebuilding, the lessons written not in scrolls, but in the lives of those who remain. She moves among them, unseen perhaps, but felt in the way they choose to rebuild walls, not just for defense, but for beauty. In the way they plant olive trees along their borders instead of fortresses. In the cool shade of the Parthenon's inner chamber, a faint golden light spills across the floor, illuminating the quiet figure of the goddess seated upon her throne. She does not lean forward or recline. She sits with the perfect stillness of one who holds all the time she needs. The sounds from outside, the murmur of the sea, the distant calls of birds filter in like threads of a tapestry being woven around her. This is her domain, not just the stone and the marble, but the clarity that fills the space between thought and action, the stillness that makes action meaningful. You feel her presence as you would feel the shape of a thought forming in your own mind, subtle at first, then unmistakable. It does not push you toward a conclusion. It simply removes the fog, leaving the path ahead visible in its true form. And in that moment, you understand that her gift is not to decide for you, but to ensure you have the vision to decide well. The sun shifts in the sky, and the city below changes with it, the shadows lengthening, the colors deepening. Athena watches it all with the quiet satisfaction of someone who knows that wisdom. Like the olive tree, grows slowly but endures far longer than the rush of a single season. And as the light fades into the softness of evening, you feel her presence settle into your own thoughts, leaving you with a stillness that is not empty but full of possibility. of balance, of the kind of calm that carries you gently towards sleep. Block 8 Apollo. He is the soft spill of light over a calm horizon, the first touch of warmth that lifts the mist from sleeping valleys, the hum of a single note carried across an empty hall until it fades into silence. Apollo. His name resonates like the pluck of a string that vibrates long after the hand has stilled, carrying with it the promise of clarity, order, and beauty. In the old stories, he is the god of the sun, of music, of prophecy, of healing, and yet in this telling, he is more than the sum of those domains. He is the quiet perfection that emerges when all things find their right place, when the world breathes in harmony with itself. The vision opens not in the blaze of noon, but in the slow unfolding of dawn. The sea lies stretched beneath the sky like polished glass, reflecting the pale pink and gold of the rising sun in perfect symmetry. A single gull drifts overhead, its wings spread wide, its movement almost imperceptible against the still air. On the distant shore, the white stone of a temple catches the early light, its columns glowing faintly as though lit from within. This is Apollo's sanctuary, not crowded with worshippers, but waiting in the hushed expectation of a concert hall before the first note is played. He steps into the scene as light itself might, not with abruptness, but with inevitability, as though the world had simply been holding its breath until he arrived. His figure is tall and composed, robed in white that shifts subtly with each movement, catching the sun like the surface of water. In one hand, he carries a lyre of polished wood strung with golden threads, each string seeming to hum softly on its own, as if aware of the melody it is destined to play. His hair, golden and unbound, falls across his shoulders with the ease of sunlight spilling through an open window. When he walks, it is as if the air clears in his wake, not the clearing of a storm, but the way mist dissolves under the morning sun, leaving the shapes of the world sharp and certain. The olive groves around the temple stir gently in a breeze that carries with it the faintest trace of music, not loud enough to name, but enough to make the heart slow its pace and the mind fall still. In the stories told by those who claim to have heard him play, his music does not demand attention. It holds it effortlessly, as the eye is held by the horizon or the ear by the murmur of a brook. The lyre's voice is clear but never sharp, its notes unfolding like petals in the slow light, each one distinct and yet inseparable from the whole. Those who listen feel as though they are not being given something new, but reminded of something they have always known, a truth too deep for words, carried on a vibration that reaches past thought into the still center of being. Here, in this vision, Apollo moves through the temple, pausing before the great statue carved in his image. But the marble is not a reflection of his pride. It is a reflection of the people's reverence for the ideals he embodies: balance, clarity, and the union of beauty with purpose. He touches the base of the statue lightly, as though in acknowledgement, then turns toward the open courtyard, where the sun now rests fully upon the stone. It is there that he begins to play. The sound is not an intrusion upon the silence, but an extension of it, as though the stillness itself had found a voice. Each note falls into place with the certainty of stars and their courses, the spaces between them as deliberate as the notes themselves. The melody is simple, but within it lies an intricacy too subtle to untangle, a pattern that seems to echo the movements of the tides, the phases of the moon, the growth of vines in the summer heat. As the music drifts outward, it touches the land in ways unseen. In the harbor below, fishermen pause in their work without knowing why. their hands resting lightly on nets as they listen to something they cannot name. In the hills, shepherds feel the restlessness of their flock's ease, the sheep grazing in quiet contentment. In the marketplace, the hum of voices softens. The rhythm of footsteps falls into a gentler cadence, and for a moment all the fragments of the city move together as if in time to a song heard by every heart. The storyteller's voice carries you deeper into this harmony, letting the sound of the lyre blend with the sound of the sea, the rustle of leaves, the distant calls of morning birds. You can almost feel the sunlight as it spills slowly across. Your skin, warm but never oppressive, bright but never harsh. It is a light that reveals without blinding, that warms without burning, the kind of light in which one might read the lines of their own fate, not with fear, but with understanding. For Apollo is not only the bringer of light, but the interpreter of its meaning. In the quiet recesses of the temple, the oracle of Delphi sits in her shadowed chamber, the air thick with the scent of laurel and the faint hum of unseen music. Her visions, it is said, come from him not as commands, but as glimpses of the patterns beneath the surface of things, the currents that carry all lives toward their ends. To receive such visions is to feel the delicate balance between choice and inevitability, to know that while the road may twist, it was always meant to lead to where it leads. And so, in his presence, there is no rush, no urgency. The day will unfold as it should, each moment finding its place as surely as each note in his song. You feel this certainty settling into you like the warmth of sunlight on stone, slow and steady, until you are not merely listening to the music, but resting inside it, as if it were a room built of sound and light. When at last the final note fades, it does not leave silence behind. It leaves a deeper kind of quiet, one in which every sound is part of a larger harmony. Apollo lowers the lyre and gazes out toward the horizon, where the sea meets the sky in a line so fine it could be a single drawn thread. He does not need to speak. The music has already said what words cannot, and in that unspoken truth, you feel yourself drifting, carried by the same current that moves the tides, steady and sure, into the ease of sleep. Block 9, Artemis. She is the silver arc of the moon rising over a sleeping forest, the whisper of wind through pine branches, the ripple of a shadow across a still pool. Artemis, her name moves like the rustle of leaves in the dark, soft but certain, impossible to mistake for anything else. In the myths, she is the goddess of the hunt, of the moon, of wild places and untamed creatures, twin to Apollo. Yet opposite in her light, his warm gold to her cool silver. But here, in the stillness of this telling, she is not the chase, not the swift arrow loosed into the night. She is the quiet presence that makes such movement possible, the patient watcher, the unshakable guardian of the places where silence reigns. The scene begins in the deep folds of a mountain forest, where the air holds the faint scent of cedar and damp earth. It is night, but not the darkness of fear, rather the soft, embracing darkness in which the eyes adjust slowly, shapes emerging. In shades of blue and grey, the ground is carpeted with moss that muffles every footstep, and the canopy above opens in rare places to reveal slivers of the night sky, where stars shimmer like scattered salt. From far off, a silver light begins to grow, seeping gently through the trees until it spills into a small clearing. There, standing as if she has always been part of the place, is Artemis. She wears a tunic of pale linen that falls to her knees, belted lightly at the waist, its folds shifting with the faintest breeze. Her hair, dark as the shadowed side of the moon, is gathered at the nape of her neck, though a few loose strands catch the moonlight like threads of silver. A bow rests lightly in her left hand, unstrung for now, and a quiver of arrows hangs at her back, each fletched with the soft grey feathers of an owl. Her eyes hold the clarity of a still lake under starlight, and when she moves, it is with the silent grace of a deer stepping through tall grass. The forest does not resist her presence. It seems to lean toward her, as if recognizing its own spirit in her form. An owl glides overhead, landing on a nearby branch with a sound so soft it could be mistaken for the shifting of leaves. In the shadows beyond the clearing, a stag appears, its antlers crowned with moonlight, its breath rising in pale clouds. Artemis meets its gaze without a word, and in that exchange there is no dominance, no fear, only understanding, a shared belonging to this realm, untouched by walls or fire. The moon rises higher, and its light washes over the forest like water over stone, revealing paths invisible by day. Artemis turns toward one of these paths, and you follow her in thought, moving through the woods with a slowness that allows each detail to settle, the scent of crushed pine needles underfoot, the glimmer of dew on spiderwebs stretched between branches, the soft give of soil beneath each step. As she walks, the night seems to expand around her. You realize that she is not merely in the forest. She is the forest. Its breath, its watchfulness, its unhurried rhythm. The creatures here do not scatter at her passing. They draw nearer, foxes slipping between tree trunks, hares pausing mid-step, the eyes of owls glinting in the dark. Her domain is not one of ownership, but of guardianship, the kind that asks for nothing but respect in return. The storyteller's voice moves as the moon moves, slow, deliberate, casting light only where it chooses. You see Artemis pause beside a stream, its surface catching the moonlight in a silver ribbon. She kneels, dipping her fingers into the water, and the ripples spread outward in perfect rings, each one carrying the reflected moon farther into the dark. The sound is soft, almost like the breath of someone sleeping, and in it there is a kind of peace that belongs to those who know they are exactly where they are meant to be. Far away, the hills open into a meadow awash in pale light. She steps into it without hesitation, and the grass parts around her ankles as if welcoming an old friend. The flowers here are closed against the cool air, but their faint fragrance lingers, mingling with the scent of earth and stone. Above, the moon rides high, casting the meadow in a light that is neither day nor night, but something between a time outside of time, where nothing rushes and nothing waits. Artemis stops in the center of this expanse, lifting her gaze to the sky. The constellations seem to arrange themselves around her, Orion's belt gleaming in the east, the Pleiades clustered like a handful of frost. She closes her eyes, and in that moment, the forest, the meadow, the streams, and the creatures all seem to hold their breath. It is not the stillness before action, but the stillness that is the action, a perfect moment in which everything exists exactly as it should. When she opens her eyes, there is no urgency in her movement. She begins the walk back to the forest, the moon at her shoulder like a companion. The path is not marked, but she knows it without needing to see. The land itself seems to remember her steps. As the trees close around her again, their shadows deep and cool, you feel the world narrowing into quiet. The only sound is the soft rhythm of her breath and the distant, steady call of an owl. And as the storyteller's words fade, you find that Artemis's calm has become your own. The night around you is vast, but it is not empty. It is full of the subtle music of life at rest, of the slow turning of the earth beneath the moon. In her presence, you feel no need to hurry, no need to speak, only to be as the forest is, as the moon is, as Artemis is. And in that being, sleep comes easily, like a shadow passing over the land, silent and sure. Block 10 Aries, he is. The deep, steady thrum that lies beneath the surface of silence. The pulse that never stops. The low and constant beat that is older than the first clash of steel. Aries. His name is often spoken in tales of war and fury, of the roaring chaos, of battlefields and the sharp tang of iron in the air. But here, his presence is something different, slower, heavier, and more enduring. He is not the quick flare of conflict, but the long shadow cast by the inevitability of struggle, the truth that even in peace there is the memory of war. In this telling, his steps fall like distant drums that mark not a march to battle, but the patient rhythm of time itself. The vision begins at the edge of a vast plain, where the grass bends in unison under a wind that moves as if it has been crossing the earth since before memory began. The sky above is an endless sweep of muted gold and grey, clouds stretched into long, soft shapes that seem frozen in place. Far in the distance, hills rise gently against the horizon, their outlines blurred by a haze that is neither mist nor dust, but something in between. There is no sound except the faint hiss of wind in the grass and the slow, steady beat of your own heart, which feels as though it is keeping time with the land. Aries appears not with the suddenness of an ambush, but with the inevitability of a tide reaching shore. His figure is broad and grounded, clad in simple armor that catches the muted light without flashing. The bronze is worn, not polished, the marks of countless battles etched into its surface like a language only he can read. At his side hangs a sword in its sheath, and though the hilt is within easy reach, his hands rest loosely at his sides. His helmet, crested with a plume the color of dark wine, is tucked beneath one arm, revealing hair the shade of weathered iron and eyes that hold a depth like the dark core of the earth. As he walks, the grass sways more deeply in his wake, not from force, but from a kind of recognition, as if the land itself knows him and bends in quiet acknowledgement. His gaze sweeps the horizon, not in search of an enemy, but in quiet appraisal of the space before him, the openness that is both freedom and vulnerability. He pauses often, not from weariness, but because there is no reason to rush. Every step he takes seems to settle deeper into the soil, as though he is leaving not footprints, but roots. The storyteller's voice lingers on the stillness between movements, letting you feel the weight Aries carries without urgency. He reaches the crest of a small rise, and from there, the plain spreads before him in all directions. The lines of rivers and paths, visible only as subtle changes in the color of the grass. This is not the clamor of a battlefield. It is the long breath before one, the space where thought and intention gather like clouds before rain. In this moment, Aries is not the noise of war. He is its silence. Around him, the air is thick with a kind of expectancy. A hawk circles high above, its cry swallowed by the wind before it can reach the ground. In the distance, a herd of wild horses move slowly across the plain, their dark shapes shifting in and out of the tall grass. Aries watches them for a long moment, the faintest curve of recognition in his expression, as though he sees in them the same restless strength that he knows in himself. When he moves again, it is toward a single stone standing upright in the middle of the field, weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Its surface is carved with symbols so worn that they are barely visible, their meaning long since lost to all. But the gods, he places his hand against the stone, and for a moment the plain seems to hold its breath. You realize that this place is not marked by battles fought, but by battles remembered, not victories or defeats, but the simple truth. That struggle is part of the fabric of the world, woven into its very ground. The storyteller guides you deeper into the quiet that surrounds Ares, and in it you feel not the tension of impending violence, but the slow acceptance of what is. There is a rhythm to his presence, a steadiness that does not demand, but endures. Even here, even in this vast emptiness, his role is not diminished. He is the balance to peace, the reminder that stillness is precious because it is fragile. The clouds shift, letting through a pale band of sunlight that drapes the plain in gold. Ares turns toward it, and for a moment the hard lines of his armor seem softened, the bronze glowing warmly in the light. It is not the light of triumph, nor the glare of conquest, but the simple glow of a day passing as it should. And here, as the voice of the storyteller slows, there is a quiet invitation. If you have found a kind of stillness in this journey through the realm of the gods, let it linger. If the calm has reached you, share it, pass it forward, so others might drift into this same gentle space. A like, a comment, a shared moment, small offerings to keep the story alive, to keep the light from fading too soon. Ares remains on the rise, watching the plain as the sun dips lower. His figure a steady silhouette against the slow-moving sky. The wind moves through the grass in long waves, the sound like the breathing of the earth itself. You can feel that. Breath in your own chest, slow and even, carrying you toward the edge of rest. There is no hurry. The plain will wait. Ares will wait. And in that waiting, you too can let go, sinking into the deep. Patient, quiet, where sleep comes, like the settling of evening over the land. Block 11, Aphrodite. She is the first breath of warmth that touches the skin at dawn. The shimmer of sunlight playing upon calm water, the soft curve of a shell carried ashore by a tide that has traveled across the world. Aphrodite, her name drifts like a sigh between waves, each syllable imbued with the ease of beauty that does not try to be noticed, but simply is. In the myths, she is the goddess of love, of desire, of the bonds that draw hearts together, born from the foam of the sea. But in this telling, she is not the fiery surge of passion, nor the glittering glamour that dazzles the eyes. She is the deep and quiet tide of affection that fills the spaces between words, the slow, steady pull of connection that endures after the first glance fades. The vision begins on a shoreline where the sea is as smooth as polished glass, the air heavy, with the scent of salt and the faint sweetness of flowering shrubs that grow along the dunes. The sand is pale and fine, holding the day's warmth even as the sky deepens into the muted colors of early evening. The horizon stretches unbroken, a line so thin and precise it could be the edge of a dream. And in that space where sea meets sky, a single ripple forms, traveling with the deliberation of something certain in its course. The water parts gently, not with the violence of a wave, but with the careful unveiling of a secret long held. From the heart of the sea, Aphrodite rises, her form luminous in the fading light. She stands upon the open shell of a scallop, its inner surface gleaming like moonlit ivory. Her hair falls in long, fluid lines, dark at the roots and warming to gold where the last sun catches it, moving with the rhythm of the water as though it is still part of the sea itself. Her skin holds the softness of clouds drifting over sunlight, and her eyes, the color of the shore where shallow water meets sand, hold no judgment, only the kind of seeing that understands without the need to ask. She steps lightly from the shell onto the wet sand, leaving no mark, as though the earth itself will not take her weight. Around her ankles, the foam curls and retreats, like a tide reluctant to let her go. She walks with the unhurried grace of someone for whom time has no hold, each movement flowing into the next as naturally as the shifting of the waves. The storyteller's voice moves as the tide moves, patient, repeating, and never quite the same from one moment to the next. You see Aphrodite pause beside a shallow pool left by the receding sea, its surface reflecting both her face and the darkening sky above. She kneels, letting her fingertips trail through the water, and the ripples move outward in slow, perfect circles. Each ring catches a fragment of light, scattering it into patterns that seem almost deliberate, as though the sea itself is speaking in a language only she can hear. Around her, the beach is alive with the quiet hum of evening, the whisper of wind over the dunes, the distant cry of a seabird, the delicate hiss of foam on sand. A cluster of doves descends from the air, their wings cutting the silence with soft pulses. They land near her feet, unafraid, moving with the easy familiarity of creatures that know they belong in her presence. She moves toward the dunes, the grass there swaying in slow arcs under the influence of the same invisible rhythm that guides the waves. Each blade glows faintly in the last light, turning silver as the first stars appear. In the shelter of the dunes, a small grove of myrtle trees grows, their white blossoms just beginning to open, releasing a fragrance that mingles with the salt in the air. Aphrodite touches one of the flowers, not to take it, but simply to feel the life within it, her expression as serene as the sea before a summer storm. The moon rises, casting a broad path of light across the water, and Aphrodite returns to the shore. She walks into the shallows until the waves cover her ankles, and there she stands, gazing out over the expanse as though reading something written on the surface. Her stillness becomes yours, the sense that nothing more needs to be done in this moment but to exist, to feel the cool water, to hear the low pulse of the tide, to breathe. In her presence, love is not a spark that burns itself out, but an ocean without edges. It does not demand to be seen, does not cry out for attention. It simply surrounds, holding the heart as the sea holds the shore. You feel it in the rhythm of your own pulse, in the way your breath matches the slow advance and retreat of the waves. It is not about longing for something distant. It is about recognizing that the thing you long for is already here, woven into the world, waiting to be noticed. The sky deepens to a soft navy, and the stars grow bolder, their light reflected in the shifting mirror of the sea. Aphrodite turns once more toward the horizon, her figure a silhouette against the vast glowing path of the moon. She does not wave or speak or offer a farewell. She simply remains for a moment longer, as though imprinting herself upon the night, and then steps forward, letting the water rise around her until she is once again part of the sea, the shell that carried her rests for a moment on the surface, catching the moonlight like a secret half-told before slipping beneath the waves. The tide continues its steady work, smoothing the sand, erasing the line between where she stood and where she vanished. The night air grows cooler, the sounds softer, the horizon fading into shadow, and in that slow dimming you feel the warmth She left behind a quiet, enduring presence that asks for nothing but allows everything. It settles into you like the tide into the shore, a calm so complete that it pulls you gently, irresistibly, toward the deep, unbroken sea of sleep. Block 12. Hephaestus. He is the glow that rises from the heart of the earth, the slow heartbeat of molten stone, the deep, patient rhythm of craft that outlasts lifetimes. Hephaestus, his name does not rush across the tongue. It rests there, weighty, deliberate, a name built to endure. In the myths, he is the god of the forge, of fire tamed into purpose, of metal shaped not by force alone, but by knowledge and time. He is the master of the anvil, the one whose hands bring form to what is formless, whose work lives longer than those who made it. But in this telling, he is not the clamor of hammers striking in quick succession. He is the slow and steady labor that carries the comfort of inevitability, the assurance that what is built with patience will not easily fall. The vision begins deep within a mountain, in a cavern lit by the dim red glow of embers that never entirely fade. The air is warm, dense with the scent of iron and the faint tang of smoke, yet not oppressive. Instead, it wraps around you like a heavy blanket, grounding you. The walls are layered with the colors of time, blackened stone streaked with gold, and copper, each line telling the story of heat and pressure over centuries. In the center, a forge breathes softly, the coals shifting with a sound like the gentle sigh of a sleeping creature. Hephaestus stands nearby, his frame broad and solid, his shoulders carrying the ease of someone who has worked with weight all his life. His hands, scarred and strong, move without hurry, as though each motion has been repeated so many times that it has become part of him. In one hand, he holds a length of metal glowing with the quiet intensity of banked fire. In the other, a hammer that seems as much an extension of his arm as any muscle or bone. He lifts the hammer and brings it down in a slow, deliberate arc, the sound resonating deep through the stone, not sharp or jarring, but low and steady, like the tone of a bell that hums long after it is struck. Around him, the workshop is not cluttered but ordered, each tool resting in its place, each surface bearing the smooth polish of long use. The light from the forge plays across unfinished works, the curve of a blade not yet sharpened, the swell of a goblet awaiting its final engraving, the coiled metal of a chain meant to hold something precious. Every object carries the mark of care, the kind of attention that cannot be hurried. The storyteller's voice lingers on the rhythm of his work, letting the pauses between each strike stretch until they feel like part of the sound itself. You begin to feel the same pace settle into you, the understanding that not everything must be finished quickly, that there is a peace in the act of shaping something slowly. The heat from the forge radiates outward in gentle waves, warming your skin, loosening the last tensions from your body. Hephaestus sets aside the piece he has been working on and moves toward a basin of water, its surface dark and still. He lowers the glowing metal into it, and the hiss that rises is not sharp but subdued, steam drifting upward in soft curls. The scent changes subtly, carrying with it a hint of rain falling on warm stone. When the steam clears, the metal rests. In his hands, transformed, stronger, surer, bearing the memory of both fire and water. He turns to a nearby bench, where delicate tools wait. From a small box, he takes a gem the color of deep wine, holding it to the light until its heart glows. With patient fingers, he begins to set it into a circlet of gold, each movement precise but unhurried. There is no sense of urgency here, no pressing deadline, The work is its own reward, and the time it takes is simply the time it needs. In the background, the forge breathes on, its glow steady, its warmth unchanging. The walls seem to hold the memory of every creation that has passed through this space, and that memory settles around you like a protective cloak. You realize that the forge is not just a place of work. It is a place of constancy in a world that changes too quickly. Hephaestus does not speak, yet his silence is not empty. It is the silence of someone who knows that the right shape, the right balance, will reveal itself if you listen long enough. His eyes, deep and steady, glance toward the open tunnel that leads out of the cavern, where a faint draught carries the scent of pine and cool night air. He steps toward it, and you follow in thought, moving from the glow of the forge into the softer darkness beyond. Outside, the mountain stands under a sky full of stars, their light cold and clear. The forge's warmth lingers on your skin, a reminder of the place you've left behind. Below, valleys stretch out in shadow, and rivers catch the moonlight in winding silver lines. Hephaestus rests one hand on the rock beside him, as if feeling the strength within it, the same strength he calls upon in his work. The wind moves gently across the stone, carrying the low hum of the forge outward into the night, blending it with the sound of distant water. In his presence, you understand that creation is not just about shaping metal or stone. It is about shaping time, turning it into something that can be held, something that will endure long after the moment has passed. You feel that understanding settle into you like the steady beat of a heart, slowing, calming, reminding you that there is no need to rush toward the end of anything. The world will wait, the work will wait, and in that waiting, you can rest. The forge behind you continues to glow, the sound of each gentle breath blending with the steady rhythm of your own. The stars above are patient witnesses, unblinking, constant, and as you stand beside Hephaestus, the weight of the day slips from you, falling away like unshaped metal on the workshop floor. What remains is only the warmth, the quiet, and the slow, certain draw towards sleep, as inevitable as the shaping of steel under a patient hand, as deep as the heartbeat of the earth itself. Block 13, Hermes. He is the whisper of movement where stillness was a moment before, the cool shift of air that brushes past without warning, the glint of light that catches the edge of the eye and is gone before you can turn to follow it. Hermes. His name carries with it the quickness of wings and the ease of passage, the fluidity of motion unbound by walls or borders. In the myths, he is the messenger of the gods, the guide of travelers, the one who moves between realms with the confidence of someone who belongs in all of them. But here, in this telling, he is not the sudden rush of wind or the blinding flash of speed. He is the long, smooth glide of a current beneath the surface, the quiet assurance that the journey is as important as its destination. The vision begins on a narrow path winding through a landscape that seems to stretch endlessly in every direction. The ground is soft beneath your feet, covered in moss that cushions each step and muffles sound until the world feels wrapped in a gentle hush. The air carries the mingled scents of cedar and distant rain, the two weaving together in a way that makes you feel as though you have been walking here for a very long time, and yet have only just arrived. Hermes appears at the bend of the path, his form easy and unassuming, as though he has simply been waiting for you to catch up. He wears a light tunic, the color of clouded sky, belted loosely at the waist, and sandals whose straps wind up his calves, ending at small, delicate wings that move with a subtle flutter, not to lift him into the air, but to keep him always in motion, even when he stands still. In one hand, he holds a caduceus, a staff crowned with two intertwining serpents, their forms so finely worked they seem almost alive. The staff catches the light in a way that draws the eye. The polished wood and metal reflecting the soft gold of the sun filtering through high branches. His smile is warm but not hurried, a quiet invitation rather than an urgent call. He gestures for you to walk with him, and as you do, the path begins to shift almost imperceptibly. One moment, it winds through trees whose leaves hang heavy and still. The next, it opens onto a meadow filled with flowers swaying gently in a breeze you cannot feel on your skin. It is as if the world rearranges itself to suit the journey, bending toward him in quiet recognition. The storyteller's voice drapes this moment in softness, allowing the edges between scenes to blur, so that the movement feels less like travel and more like drifting in a current. Hermes does not speak, but you feel that he could, that his words, if they came, would be chosen with the same care as his steps. His pace is unhurried, but there is a sense that he could arrive anywhere at any moment, should he wish to. That duality, the readiness for speed, held within a deep stillness, is what defines him. You pass a small stream that crosses the path, its waters so clear you can see each pebble on its bed, each one smoothed by years of flowing water. Hermes steps lightly across, not disturbing the surface, his reflection gliding beneath him as if it too were alive. On the other side, the air shifts again, and now you are walking through a place where tall columns rise on either side. Their stone worn but unbroken, the space between them opening into a vista of rolling hills and silver rivers that seem to shine with their own light. He pauses at the crest of a rise, and from here you can see more than the landscape. You can see the suggestion of other roads. Faint lines stretching outward like the spokes of a wheel. Some lead into mountains whose peaks are hidden in cloud, others fade into forests so deep the light cannot reach their floors. Each path is clear, yet none are marked, and still you know that Hermes could lead you along any of them without hesitation. The wind brushes past, carrying with it a faint murmur, a sound like voices speaking just beyond the edge of hearing. Hermes tilts his head slightly, as if listening, and then begins walking again. You follow, and the murmur grows softer until it disappears entirely, replaced once more by the even sound of your footsteps on moss. In his presence, travel becomes less about covering distance and more about inhabiting each moment of the journey. There is no rush to reach the end, no need to push forward with urgency. Every step is both a beginning and an arrival. You find that your breathing has matched the rhythm of his pace, steady and deep, each inhale and exhale bringing with it the quiet comfort of motion without pressure. The path narrows again, curving through a stand of cypress trees whose branches arch overhead, forming a canopy that filters the sunlight into shifting patterns on the ground. Hermes runs a hand lightly along the bark of one as he passes, his fingers tracing the grooves as though reading something inscribed there long ago. The air here is cooler, carrying the faint metallic scent of rain about to fall, and though no drops touch your skin, you feel the freshness it promises. Eventually, the trees thin, and you emerge onto a wide plain under a sky painted with the soft tones of twilight. The grass ripples in long, slow waves, the motion so uniform it feels as though the land itself is breathing. Hermes stops here, standing with the ease of someone who has reached exactly where he meant to go, though you have no sense of how far you've traveled or how long you've been walking. He turns to you with that same warm, quiet smile, and in it you feel the understanding that the journey does not end here, but neither does it need to continue just now. There is time to rest, to breathe, to let the horizon remain where it is. For a while longer, the wind moves again, brushing past your cheek, and for a moment, you imagine that if you turned quickly enough, you might see the wings on his sandals stirring the air. The plain stretches out before you, the first stars appearing overhead, their light caught in the silver of distant rivers. Hermes does not vanish. He simply remains where he is, watching the sky deepen, the staff in his hand gleaming faintly. In the fading light, and as you stand beside him, the quiet settles into you completely, the stillness holding you like a soft, unbroken line of music. The journey pauses here, and in that pause, you find the space to let go, to drift into the calm that waits beyond waking, where the roads meet in silence, and the traveler rests without end. Block 14, Artemis. She is the silver edge of night, the quiet arc of a bow drawn beneath the moon, the cool breath of the forest that moves unseen yet touches everything. Artemis, her name carries the stillness of deep woods, the clean clarity of mountain air, and the untamed patience of rivers that carve valleys over lifetimes. In the myths, she is the goddess of the hunt, of wild creatures and the moon's watchful light, the protector of those who wander beyond the safety of walls. Yet in this telling, she is not the sudden chase, not the tension of prey and predator. She is the gentle presence that walks in step with the natural world, the unbroken bond between stillness and movement, the guardian of the places where silence is its own language. The vision begins under a sky that has just surrendered the sun. The horizon glows faintly with the last touch of gold, but overhead the first pale stars emerge, scattered like grains of salt on a darkening cloth. The moon is not yet full, but it is bright enough to silver the edges of the clouds that drift lazily past. You stand at the edge of a forest, its tall pines standing as columns in a vast, living temple. Their branches sway just enough to murmur. In the wind, a sound that is neither song nor whisper, but something in between, as though the trees are exchanging thoughts too old for human words. Artemis appears among them without announcement. She steps from shadow to light with no more disturbance than a leaf falling into still water. Her figure is tall, her movements unhurried yet precise, as if every shift of weight and turn of her head is guided by an inner rhythm older than the forest itself. She wears a short kitten of soft, undyed linen that catches the moonlight and holds it, and across her back rests a simple bow of yew, its curve elegant but strong. A quiver at her hip holds arrows fletched with pale feathers, each one balanced, as if meant not just for speed, but for harmony with the air it will travel through. In her presence, the air feels lighter, yet the ground beneath your feet steadier. She gestures for you to follow, and as you step into the forest, the change is immediate. The world outside fades to a distant hum, replaced by the quiet pulse of life here. Every footstep sinks into a bed of fallen needles and moss, releasing a faint fragrance that mixes the scent of earth, resin, and something sharp and clean, like the breath of cold springs hidden deep in the hills. The storyteller's voice glides over the scene, drawing out the details slowly, letting each one settle before the next arrives. You pass a clearing where moonlight spills like water, pooling in the grass and tracing silver outlines around the flowers that open only at night. The air is cool but not cold, and somewhere in the distance an owl calls a low, deliberate sound that seems to echo longer than the space allows. Artemis moves through the trees without breaking their patterns, her steps in time with the rise and fall of the branches overhead. She pauses beside a brook so narrow you could step across it, yet it sings with a sound far larger than its size. She kneels, cupping water in her hands, and as it pours back between her fingers, it catches the moonlight, breaking into hundreds of brief silver sparks before vanishing into the current again. You walk on together, deeper into the forest, until the trees give way to a high ridge. From here, the land stretches out in layers of shadow and light, rolling hills, dark forests, and winding rivers that shine faintly under the stars. The moon hangs low, its light turning the surface of a distant lake into a mirror. Artemis stands beside you, her gaze moving slowly across the horizon, as if tracing paths that only she can see. She does not speak, but there is no need. The silence between you is full, carrying the weight of every living thing that shares this night. The fox moving silently through the underbrush, the deer pausing in the meadow, the hawk perched in the tallest pine, waiting for the first light of dawn. You realize that to her, these are not separate beings, but parts of one great, breathing whole. And in that realization, you feel the boundaries between yourself and the world grow thinner, as though the air itself is gently folding you into it. The wind shifts, bringing with it the faint scent of wild thyme and distant rain. Artemis turns, leading you down a narrow trail where the branches above form a woven canopy. The path winds gently until it opens into another clearing, this one lit entirely by moonlight. In its center stands a stag, its coat gleaming as if woven from the same silver that spills from the sky. It meets Artemis's gaze without fear, and for a moment, the three of you, goddess, creature, and traveler, share the same stillness, the same quiet thread of time. When the stag moves on, melting into the shadows, Artemis lowers her bow from her shoulder, not to draw it, but to rest her hand along its curve, as though feeling the grain of the wood. She walks back toward the trees, and you follow the forest embracing you once more. The sounds are softer now, the murmur of the brook, the sigh of the wind, the almost inaudible crackle of leaves settling underfoot. Eventually, she stops beneath an ancient oak whose roots twist into the earth like the lines of a map. She leans against the trunk, her gaze lifted to the moon. You stand beside her, and the quiet stretches between you, deep and unbroken. It is a quiet that does not demand sleep, but invites it, the kind that seeps into your bones and slows your breath, until the boundaries between waking and dreaming blur completely. Here, in the still heart of her realm, there is no urgency, no chase, only the slow turning of the night toward dawn. The silver light drapes across your shoulders like a cloak. The air settles warm and cool at once, and the last thoughts slip away, carried off like leaves on a silent current. And in that drifting, you rest not because the journey is over, but because the night has made a place for you, and Artemis stands watch until the day returns. Block 15, Final Closing. The journey through this world of gods and ancient light draws to its natural rest, not with the sudden closing of a door, but with the slow dimming of the sun as it sinks below the farthest hills. You have walked the winding roads of Olympus and beyond, felt the warm weight of the sun in Apollo's presence, heard the measured hush of the sea under Poseidon's watch, traced the still and endless patience of Hades' domain, and moved in step with Hermes' easy, unbroken stride. You have stood in the shadowed forests of Artemis, where the moon spills its quiet blessing, and now, as the final threads of this tapestry are woven, the air itself feels heavy with the sense that you have seen something eternal, not in flashes, but in the way the world breathes when no one is watching. The scene settles on a high place, somewhere that feels both real and imagined, a hill above a wide expanse of land and sea. The grass bends under the touch of a wind that has traveled far, carrying with it scents of salt, pine, and the faint sweetness of flowers that open only in darkness. Above, the sky deepens into a shade of blue so rich it feels as if it could draw you upward into its depth. The first stars have arrived, their light barely trembling as it falls to meet the land, and the moon hangs full, its silver glow laying gentle paths across the water. Here, all the gods you have met are present, though not in a way that demands. Notice, they stand at the edges of the clearing, woven into the space like the shapes in old marble, not posed, but simply existing. Zeus with the weight of the sky in his eyes, Hera with the calm strength of the hearth in her stance, Poseidon's presence rolling like a deep current far below, Hades still as stone yet watchful, Apollo holding the warmth of an unending summer's day, Artemis poised as the night's quiet guardian, Hermes carrying the roads in his step and the horizons in his gaze. Others linger to Athena, wise and steady. Demeter, whose hands hold the memory of every harvest. Dionysus, a low hum of celebration at the edges of the stillness. They are not here to speak, but to remain, as they always have, in the spaces between earth and sky. You find a place among them, not as a guest who must ask permission, but as one who has walked long enough to be recognized by the path itself. The grass beneath you is cool, the kind of cool that seems to seep upward, soothing tired feet and calming restless thoughts. In the distance, waves rise and fall in a rhythm too steady to count, and the sound folds into the wind until it is impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. The storyteller's voice lowers now, not in urgency, but in the same way a tide draws back, making room for stillness. The stories of gods are not meant to end. They simply pause in our telling, waiting for the next voice to call them forward again. Tonight, their voices are quiet, and the air holds only the slow turn of the earth beneath the stars. A soft light begins to gather, not from the sun or moon, but from the space around you, as if the grass, the air, the sky, and the sea have agreed to share a single breath. Your own breathing falls into the same rhythm, slow and full, each inhale carrying the cool sweetness of night, each exhale releasing whatever weight you have carried. The land itself feels alive beneath you, not moving, but pulsing with the same deep steadiness that carries mountains through centuries and rivers through valleys. The gods remain, but they do not watch you. They watch with you. Their gazes turn outward, toward horizons too far to see, toward the endless places where the sea dissolves into the sky. In this moment, you understand that they have always been, watching, not as rulers over subjects, but as keepers of balance, guardians of the long, unbroken lines that stretch through time. A cool breeze moves through the clearing, brushing against your skin, lifting strands of hair, carrying with it the faint rustle of leaves from trees far below. The air tastes faintly of salt, and you know that somewhere waves are breaking against unseen shores. That sound will continue long after you have closed your eyes, as it has for longer than you can imagine. The moon climbs higher, its light silvering the outlines of the gods until they seem carved from its glow. In its fullness, the light touches every corner of the clearing, leaving no shadow untouched. And yet the darkness beyond remains vast and undisturbed, a reminder that not all things are meant to be seen. The world holds its breath in a way that is not tense, but profoundly at ease, like the pause before the next note of a song. Here, at the edge of night, there is no need to hold on to the details. The names, the deeds, the triumphs and tempests, they all dissolve into the simple presence of being here, now, with the quiet of the world wrapping around you. Your eyes grow heavy, not from weariness, but from the gentle pull of the earth inviting you to rest. The grass shifts beneath, you finding the perfect shape to hold your body, and the warmth of the day lingers just enough to soften the cool of the night. Far away, the constellations drift slowly, their shapes shifting in ways too gradual to see. Perhaps the gods see them differently, knowing the stories behind every star. Perhaps they, too, are content to watch in silence, letting the patterns write themselves across the sky. The wind softens to a sigh, and the sea's voice becomes the faintest murmur, as if it, too, has chosen to rest. You feel the edges of your awareness loosening, your thoughts stretching out until they fade into the vast, calm dark. This is not an ending, but a place to pause, to breathe, to let the weight of the world fall away for now. And so, under the moon's full watch and the silent company of the gods, you let your eyes close. The clearing remains, the sea continues, the stars keep their slow dance, and you drift, carried not by urgency, but by the steady, unbroken current of night. Sleep takes you gently, like a hand guiding you into calm waters, and the last thing you feel is the world holding you as if it has known you forever. If you've enjoyed this quiet journey through the realm of the gods, you can gently like this video, share it with someone who might also find peace in its telling, and leave a comment with your favorite moment or figure from the myths. And if you wish to walk with us again into other worlds and other nights, you can subscribe so the next story will be here, waiting whenever you are ready to drift once more.